She's now an advocate against domestic violence, hoping to create a home for victims here in Pensacola.
And when I turned back around, a shotgun was facing me and he shot me.
Williams was shot in the stomach, killing her unborn baby she had named Jamie.
She saved my life. You're not alone. You're not alone. And if I came out, you can come out.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of No More Silence. I have a monthly program that I have with my partner in crime, Miss Carolyn Williams. Carolyn, hello.
Hello, Vernon. How you doing?
I am well, sugar. I am well. We got another month, another show with No More Silence and definitely no more violence in the relationships. That is so true. Yes. I understand that we have another guest tonight with us. You want to introduce our guest?
Yes, Vernon, I have Carla Van Stevenson with us tonight, and she is a survivor of domestic violence. Welcome to the show, No More Silence, Carla. I am so glad that you are with us on tonight. Okay, let's get started. Carla, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hang on, caller. I got your audio off. Let me get your audio on. I'm sorry. Now go ahead.
Okay. My name is Carla Stevenson. I'm a domestic violence survivor, and I'm also currently a social worker that works here locally in the local community.
Okay,
Um,
so you
mhm.
you say that you are a survivor of domestic violence. Tell us a little bit about that. When were you in a domestic violence relationship?
um, I was actually married for approximately about 25 years. I got married very early at the age of 19. My husband was actually active duty military, and we have four beautiful children. But throughout that, um, well, I would say very early on in the relationship, um, domestic violence occurred. He actually was arrested early on in the relationship, and the military kind of stepped in and did some preventative measures,
Wait, 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 wait,
which.
wait. Let's let,
Mhm.
let's back up because I never had anyone on the show that military. And I
Right.
know that there are some women and men that are going through domestic violence that is in the military. And I
Mhm.
often want to know how do they handle that when they have someone in domestic violence. Let me ask you something. So
Mhm.
you was married and he was in the military.
Mhm.
Did the military know it? What does the military do as far as when someone is admitting, convicting of domestic violence, doing domestic violence? What does the military exactly do?
Okay. Well, I will say, my my situation happened um, in the '90s, and I know from my job as a social worker that a lot of things have changed since then. A lot of
Yeah.
preventions have been placed, and a lot of new laws and things like that. But when it happened to me back in the '90s, even back then, his arrest happened civilian first. So he was arrested by the local police, and then the military stepped in, and he was basically released, and the military took their precautions at that time. And I will say that his commanding officer at the time reached out to me, wanted to make sure that me and my children were okay, wanted to make sure if there was anything that they could do to assist in the situation. And but at that time, I was not ready to even acknowledge that it was
Hmm.
happening in my relationship. So at that time, I was still covering for him, very much trying to. My whole objective was to preserve his career because he was the breadwinner of the family, which
Yeah.
we both know when they have that financial control as well as other controls that they use within the relationship. So he was the breadwinner and used the finances very much to control and dominate.
So,
But
in other words, what people don't understand, Carla, is that, when you're in this situation, you really protect your abuser. You
yes,
protect them,
it,
and it's called gaslighting. So when you're
yeah.
saying that, um, his career over
Mhm,
you because he was the breadwinner, you
mhm.
was not making any money. You didn't have any money. How long was he in service?
Oh wow, he actually retired
Oh, okay,
from the military, and I actually stayed a very long time. Like I said, it was 20 plus years before I actually left and filed for divorce. I think it did take me approximately 7 times. It may have been a little longer, but I would say anywhere from 7 to 9 times that I left the relationship and returned back to the relationship.
okay. Well,
But
why
by the
don't you stay
time,
right
mhm,
there? Stay right there and
yes,
explain to
yes,
people why, because people don't understand that. I don't want you to go any
yeah,
further. I want you. You say you returned 7 or 9 times. Explain and let people know why you kept going back.
okay. The thing that makes domestic violence so complicated and is because you're experiencing violence from a partner or someone you love, basically. Um, and anyone can be a victim of domestic violence. It doesn't normally start out that way. The ones who perpetrate domestic violence are very good at manipulation. And so when I initially entered into my relationship and got married, things were nice and everything was fine. And then later on, the domestic violence started to happen. And by then, we already had children, and I was away from home. And like I said, financially dependent on him, which changed a lot of things. But the reason that I returned to the relationship so many times is because I always believed him when he said that I'll never do it again, right? I always had that hope that he would never do it again. And as we would go through that phase, those phases where he would commit an abusive action, right? And then we would go through the sweetheart phase where he would be very kind and very loving. And so I was very manipulated by the relationship. And also, I had my children. So I wanted my family unit more than anything in this world. And so I was wanting to sacrifice whatever I could to keep my family together. So when I would leave the relationship, we always stayed in contact, and he would always be able to convince me that if you come back, things will be better this time. I'm gonna be a better person. I'm gonna be a better husband, a better father. And I always wanted to believe that. And there was a period of time where there was no physical um violence happening in the relationship for many years. The emotional abuse was always present, but there was a
Mm,
time where, yeah, where there was no physical violence that was happening. But what was so strange about it was when as he got closer to retirement, he had been away from us. He had been stationed away from us, and then he ended up coming back. And as he got closer to retirement, is when the domestic violence came back. It resurfaced, and by this
but
time, I was go ahead. Go
but
ahead.
really, it had not. You said it resurfaced, but really, it was still going on. It was just another way,
Yeah,
physical,
the
not
physical.
emotional.
Yes,
The
the physical
emotional.
had. Yes, the physical had stopped. Um,
Hmm.
but the actual physical violence resurfaced after he came back home and was getting ready to retire. By this
Okay.
time, I was already working as a social worker. I knew a lot more about domestic violence. I knew I was very educated about it, and I was able to make that decision to leave the relationship at that time. And this time when I left, I knew I would never return. Um,
So, Carla,
and that was,
are you saying this, that you left, you was a social worker, you was able
mhm,
to educate yourself
mhm.
because of what you did to educate yourself and learn more about domestic violence, it helped you to come out. Is that what
Yes,
you're saying?
most definitely. Most definitely. And even the fact that, my relationship with my mom was very volatile. And I always felt like I didn't have anywhere to go. I could go home
Mm-hmm.
to my mom, but I really didn't feel like that was where I was welcome or wanted to be. So it was very easy for him to manipulate me to return back so many times. And I was actually researching this on my own today because I've worked with families who have experienced domestic violence, and I've also worked with the homeless population here in Pensacola as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was getting some statistics from the National Domestic Violence Hotline today, and it was just mind blowing to me that in 2002, over 16,000 domestic violence survivors reported homelessness when they reached out to the hotline and had nowhere to go. And approximately 84.5% of domestic violence survivors had unmet housing requests. Emergency shelters became the top need of all hotline contacts and the most urgent need for domestic violence survivors. So, you know what that tells me as a social worker is that a lot of times um, uh, uh, a victim may want to leave a situation, but really have nowhere to go. And that plays into, the Jamie's house, what you are providing for the community as far as domestic violence. But,
Carla,
I've heard, go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll just you just when you did your statistics,
Hmm.
and as a community, we know that in Escambia County, there we
Hmm.
have the largest homicide. The most crime that we have is domestic violence. And if we're
Hmm.
ever going to be able to, we won't be able to alleviate it, but in able to
Hmm.
bring our numbers down, we must be able to provide what the victims need. And you said it,
Right.
it's housing. When you don't
Yeah.
have anywhere to go and you have children and you don't want to be outside, you don't want to be in your car, you rather stay, you know you need to leave, but you can't leave because you don't have the necessary things that you need to be able to make it. So if you're listening today, you can call or text 850 4624. If you want to call in or you want to text or you want to say anything, you're welcome to do so. Again, 850-291-4624. And if you are in a domestic violence relationship, you can pick up the phone and call 1-800-799-7233. That is the National Domestic Violence Hotline, or either you can call the Florida Domestic Violence Hotline, which is 1-800-500-1114. Also, we have Favor House in our community in Pensacola and Escambia County. You call 850-434-1177. And you can also call Jamie's house, which is 850-291-4624. And what Carla is saying to you now, a lot has changed. If you need help, help is available. You do not have to stay in it. Even if you say you're not ready to leave, just pick up the phone, just like Carla said. She educated herself. You can pick up the phone and get the information. So when you do need it, you know exactly what you need to do. Carla, I thank you for even explaining about how many times you left and then you went back, because so many people in our community, they don't understand a domestic violence victim. They don't understand why they keep going back. Why don't they just leave? She must want to be beat. No, that is not the case. That is not the case, my audience. That is not the case. They don't want to be there, but they don't have what they need to in order to be able to make it during that time. So statistics say that it takes at least 7 times. 7 times. They'll keep going back. Keep going back. Don't judge them. Don't judge them. But it takes 7 times for them to actually come out of the situation. We have a text. Someone has a text. And let me read the text, Carla, so we can answer this. It says, those are shocking statistics. Is it a lack of resource, or is it a lack of information getting out about the available resource?
You know what? I think it's a dual thing. I think that you can have knowledge about domestic violence, but in understanding an abuser and a victim relationship, um, it's very complicated and it's very hard to understand. But resources are the key to changing situations, to helping victims get in a better environment. Because if you think about someone who has nowhere to go, or can't see how they're going to provide for their children, or have somewhere to stay, that's going to be a game changer. I know it was a game changer for me when I simply got my college degree and was able to provide for my children by myself without any help. That to me was a stepping stone that prepared me to leave. So if you think about someone who may not have any resources, may not see how they can provide or sustain without that abuser, then you have a situation where they may remain in that situation and remain for many years, or even return to the situation. I've seen people leave situations and then return to the situation because it's just easier. It's just, I feel they feel like they can't do it alone. So, and then, when you throw in the psychological abuse and the way abusers are also able to manipulate and control their partners, it's a very complicated and difficult thing to understand. But when a victim actually leaves, that is when the situation becomes the most dangerous. I received
Mhm.
many threats when I left the situation. And it's funny that you chose that song, It's Only About the Grace of God,
Yeah.
because even very early on in the relationship, I learned the power of my testimony. And a lot of survivors are embarrassed, even within the situation of what's going on. You're embarrassed. You want to keep it secretive. You don't want people to know what you're suffering. But
Mhm.
like you said, no more silence. Because when you shine a light on what's happening in a situation, when you shine a light on domestic violence, then it brings in a whole hope of aspect of the changes that can take place. And when I came to understand the power of my testimony and how God could use what had happened to me to help others, it made a difference in what I was willing to share and say. Even now, there are people who know what I went through, but there are others who have no idea what I suffered and went through. But I'm not ashamed of it anymore. I'm so
Mhm.
grateful for what God has done through me and will continue to use me to do. I'm so grateful for where He has brought me from. And I
Mhm.
hope that in some way that someone hearing my voice, someone sees this, that they will get the strength, the knowledge to leave, to make a difference in their lives, to make a difference in their children's lives.
Mhm.
And that is
Well,
my hope in doing this today.
so let me ask you something. As a social worker, do you,
Mhm.
what are some of the resources that you know that our community, do you know any of the resources that our community has that is available for people that are in domestic violence to help them to be
You
able to
know,
come out?
Favor House is our biggest resource. It is our emergency shelter here. I was not even aware of Jamie's house until I met you. And
Mhm.
I believe that was a divine appointment of how we met, how God brought us together. So
Mhm.
I believe there are other resources out there that we just don't know about, that I don't know about, that may be able to provide. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is an amazing resource with a wealth of information. They have safety plans on there where if you are engaged in an actual domestic violence situation or relationship that's going on, and you are not prepared to leave at this moment, but it may come a day when you will need to leave. You can
Mhm.
have a safety plan prepared. You can think about and make decisions now of how you will exit that relationship. How, if you have children, you can exit that relationship safely. So, the National Domestic Violence Hotline website has a wealth of information for those who want to learn about domestic violence. And, even if you're not going through the situation, but you want to educate yourself and help someone who might be going through a situation, you may have a mom, you may have a friend, a coworker. Um, I went to a training last year down in Orlando, and it was filled with different types of law enforcement and things of that nature.
Mhm.
And I spoke up on our training about domestic violence. I spoke up and said that I was a survivor. And I had several women who came up to me after the training and say, you know what, Carla, my mom went through that when I was young,
Yeah.
or I have a friend that went through that, or I have a sister that went through that. So it's very, very common. We just don't talk about it. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
such a stigma. It's such a stigma behind it, where victims want to keep secret and don't want to say
Mhm.
what they've
Mhm.
actually experienced.
Well, part of that is because of society. But if you're in a domestic violence relationship, you can call 311. They have a survivor guide, and it tells you all about the housing and everything. I think it's working. I'm working with a victim now that was able to receive a voucher through Open Doors. And then we have the place. I don't really. I can't recall the name, but it's on Palafox, right across the street from where the old medical center used to be. So if you're in a domestic violence relationship, you can go through that program also. And Open Doors will give you a voucher that will help you with your rent, will help you with as far as with your light bill if you're in a domestic violence. And you don't have to wait like other people to be approved as far as to get food stamps in order to get child care. If you put on there and let them know that you're in a domestic violence relationship, your application moves up. You able to get your what you need right away. So there is so much that is available. Even my friend Tara at the police department, they have money that will help you to relocate. Say you want to get out of Pensacola and you have family that is somewhere else, they will have money that will help you to relocate. What I am saying to you today is I know you think there is no hope. You think that there is no way out, but there is resources that is available that the state has made available that our community get a certain amount of money for victims that are in domestic violence. So you need to take advantage of that. Yes, you can come out. I came out, Carla came out. We went back and forth again, but we finally came out. She went back and got her degree. I went back and got my degree, my master's degree, and you can make it. You can come out. The longer you stay in, the longer you stay in that relationship, it's like playing Russian roulette. You can get killed thinking it's going to get better, and you can get killed. We have another someone that it says, are there any, ooh, this is a good one. Carla, this is something that I'm going to be working on, even with some of my guests that I have had on. Are there any weekly meetings the women can attend? We got to do, yeah.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
going to get with you. I also, my guest that was on last month, that is something that we're going to be working on as far as a safe group where you can come and you could be able to share and you could be able to be empowerment, and you don't have to worry about whether or not the person that is abusing you, we will never, listen to this, any information that you tell us or you call and you call the line, even the hotline, or call Jamie's house, we promise that we would not tell your information that you're saying. Vernon, do you want to ask my guest a question or anything, Vernon? You on mute.
I know. We only got a couple of minutes. If you want to say at the 30-minute point, if you want to continue, we'll continue. But the question, the thing that I guess more was a statement. I am surprised to learn about, and being on the show with Carolyn every month, I've learned so much. But I'm surprised to know how many people are kept silent. There's so many folks out there that has been affected by this that we don't even know about. The numbers are probably staggering, and but at least we're taking a step forward to try to do something about it and make people aware of it. Carol, you want to continue? Or you want to wrap it up?
We're gonna get ready to wrap this up. Carla, I just thank you so much for coming on. And the whole purpose of the No More Silence program is to let people know that you are not alone. There is power in your voice. You cannot come out if you don't say anything. You cannot come out. You cannot come out. So you have to be an advocate. Really, you have to be an advocate for yourself. You have to know that,
you do.
you know what? You have to trust yourself and say, you know what? I'm going to take this chance. But you just can't get up and say, okay, I'm just gonna leave. You have to have a plan. And you can go to my No More Silence page. I talk about how you get your plan together. And also, if you want to donate to Jamie's house, it's $JAMIES house. If you want to visit our website, it's www.jamieshouse.org. And I want to give you those numbers again. It's National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is 1-800 799-7233, and the Florida Domestic Hotline is 1-800-500-119. And the military, if you're in service, Carla was in service. If you're in service, pick up that phone and call 1-877-995-5247. My son was in the military for 30 years, and he's been giving me some advice on some things that I can do and be able to do to help those military victims. And there is like I say, there is so much help. We got probably about 2 more minutes, Vernon?
No, we about to wrap it up. 30 seconds.
Okay, we got to wrap it up. Okay, tune in next week. Carla, thank you so much for coming out and telling your testimony. And tune in. We come on the 4th Thursday of every month. Remember, No More Silence. If I came out, you can come out.
All right, ladies, thank you so much. And folks, we'll see you again next month, the 4th Thursday of the month. We'll see you next month.